Today we will be covering a comparison between old forms versus new forms. New forms were released in June of 2023, and we've noticed that a lot of people are still making that switch over from their old forms and considering to moving towards those new forms. So we figured we'd give you a good idea of how to review these new forms in comparison to the old forms. Today we're going to be going over a quick guide of both these so that you can make an informed decision as to what works best for you. So to get started, I have up on my screen right now a sample client table old form. Now this is super rudimentary, guys. I just want to make that very clear, but I just want to go through some native navigation skills and UI just so you have a better understanding of how you were currently doing this. And if you're a new customer of Quickbase, kind of how you can also revert back to these old forms. So let's cover that first. If you go into this settings gear in the top left, you may notice Forms under User Interface. If you click into Forms, you'll notice that there's always going to be an original main form. This client's main form is actually going to be an example of the old forms, even though it will now default to the new forms. So if you do want to use those old forms, you're just going to set how different roles use these forms and then change these to be your client's main form. Now that's for view, edit, and add. I had done that already just for this example. So I'm going to go ahead and hit exit and come back to this screen. From here, you'll now notice that I already have some sample data and some sample reports, but maybe I want to move some things around. So I'm going to go ahead into this top right corner and hit customize this form. Now you'll notice a different UI, and many of you will be very familiar with this UI. You have the ability to add all these options right here. So let's go ahead and hit insert. And on this line number 1 here under form element, let's make a selection. So you see we have text, which can be used as HTML text or static plain text. We have section headings, which are commonly used. As you can see, we have on line 2 our section heading. And then we have tabs, and tabs are a great way to organize your different sections of data without having to use a section every single time. So it goes left to right rather than horizontal up and down the page, vertical, excuse me. As you continue to go down, you can see all of the fields that are available. Now, the ones that are grayed out mean they're already on your form, and Quickbase actually does not allow you to show duplicates. The rest of these are URL buttons that allow you to add records to different tables or view records from other tables with report links. You can also see the native Quickbase forms, record ID, field IDs 1 through 5 are shown here. And for example, record ID number is field ID 3 always. Those are created by Quickbase every single time for every single table. Now, what can you do once you have a field selected? So first things first is you can use an alternative label text. Now, an alternative label text makes you maybe want to say client ID. Now, this is going to be still called record ID in your fields. However, you might be able to show on the form that this is client ID number, let's say. Now you have the ability also to display when this form is used for, and that's edit, add, or view is your default. You can see that you have multiple options here. Maybe you only want this to be shown on view or only shown on edit or view. You can make those changes right from within there. And again, I will be showing you how to do this with new forms as well in a moment. If you continue down, maybe you want to see you just added a new field called company name. So with company name, you want to potentially move this up so it's in the section that we added before. So let's go ahead and look at these navigation buttons at the bottom. You have up, down, insert, and remove. Now, as you can imagine, remove will remove. Insert will add a new line above. So this is almost like adding a new field above the one that you had already selected, which then again, you have that make a selection drop down come up. And again, there's that remove. So that's how you do that. Now, as simple as this sounds, it is exactly that. Now you can just go up and move it into that other section. So now you have company name at the top. One thing you may notice on line 5, we have same row checked off. So we have first name and last name. Now that is the historic way of almost making columns. Now Quickbase by default with the old forms will go vertical, just up and down. All those fields will just start from the top and just drop all the way down. The only way to get it to go left and right would be to use this same row checkbox here. So many of you probably have that all over your form. It's very easy to do in new forms. Again, we're going to show you that in a minute. But when you go through this, let's go ahead and just take a look at what's going on over there. When I hit save, you're going to see that we now have a new section breaking to stop the client ID. You can see that we have that new label. And then you can see we have company name right at the top, followed by first name and last name to the right of it. So that's that same row we just talked about. So that's a quick customize this form. Now let's click on that button again and let's take a look at what these other tabs are. So properties. Properties allows you to change the form name, but it also allows you to show different rules. So show built-in fields. Now, a lot of you probably don't know what that means. That's the ability to show who's the last modified and who the record owner is. So you can actually check and uncheck that here. You can allow field labels to wrap. So if you have very large field names, those can wrap down to a second line. And then you could also show different buttons based off of what you want your end users to do. So if you want to hide the save and close button or the cancel buttons, you could do that here so people can really only view these records. So a lot of interesting UI, not necessarily needed always. Really, this is more for an app manager or a builder who's in control of these tables. So I'm just going to show these built-in fields again. And now let's also navigate over to dynamic form rules, one of the most powerful things Quickbase has available that not enough people really take advantage of. So what do we have here? We have the ability to add rules that are going to customize your form based off of either a role or a selected criteria, or maybe an action in Quickbase. So you see, we have one rule here available with the ability to add a new rule. Move it up or down in the sequence, because these will actually sequence based off of when the action is taken. So obviously rule number 1 will happen before rule number 10. You can insert in between multiple rules. So if you have several, you can insert, delete. You can enable or disable rules based off of, maybe you want to keep them for historic purposes, copy, or just disable all. Now let's drop down to this bottom menu where we have all these conditions and actions. So we have when the user is in or not in a role, so let's say admin, then show, or you can show or hide, require, unrequire, make read only, or make editable, or even change your display message. Maybe you want a pop-up to come up that's going to tell your user, hey, this is over $10,000 in ARR. Maybe you need to have an administrator take a look at this. Those are the types of things you could do with dynamic form rules. And then, of course, you can show a section, hide a section, show fields, hide fields. That is the main purpose of these dynamic form rules, which, of course, you can use still in new forms. And we're going to show you guys that in just a few minutes. When you exit here, you will just come back to your same form. That's just some native navigation, native UI of these old forms. And now we're going to show you a comparison to how you can do this now with new forms and all the new capabilities you have with those as well. So you're going to notice that we're now back to the new forms. And for any of you guys who are maybe newer Quickbase clients, this will be your default view. And again, this is just that rudimentary form, and we're going to go through the different ways you can customize this form to fit your liking. So let's get right into that. If you look, there's many navigational and UI changes, and the best way to show a lot of those is by kind of customizing this page as you would have seen in the past. Now it's just customized this form, and you'll see we have all of these fields, and as you hover over them, you're going to get that navigation, that grab box. You can see the hand is there ready to grab. That should feel very familiar for a lot of you guys who are using those more modern UIs. So let's go ahead and see one of my favorite things about the new forms, which is the ability to add a new column. So I'm going to go ahead and add that new column here. Why not add 2? Now you could add up to 6, but they do take that page from left to right. That was a trouble when you were doing those same rows. We were talking about that earlier with the new forms. So I really like this. This is one of the best things that Quickbase has added with these new forms. Now, what I really love here too is you have the ability to click to add here. Really simple, really easy way. And you can add many things. Of course, you could add the fields. The ones that were already on the form are grayed out. You could add report links, but then you could also just add reports themselves. And the reports are really, really neat the way you can add those. So now you can say, okay, I want the label to be default, or maybe I want it hidden. And then you could choose the report from all the tables in this app. So maybe I want to just show jobs, and I just want to show the list all. Or maybe I want to show the embedded for clients. So you can just throw that right in there. And you can do all of these different options when it comes to customizing that report and how it's going to be shown on the form with all these advanced options, including adding form rules. So maybe show toolbar. Now, maybe I don't want to show the toolbar. Maybe I don't want to show the ability to add records for my end users. So you can customize all of that here for those reports. And I really like that. Now, let's say I wanted to drag and drop over fields that are already in a different column. So maybe I want company name to go under this job section, so I can add that right here. So it's really easy to drag and drop things around on this new form, and I really like that. One of the things that you could also do is edit a whole section settings. So this whole section, maybe you want a title, maybe you want to say, client info. Really simple. And you only want to show this when you're adding or viewing, but maybe not editing. Or you can choose to have this collapse by default if you would like, or even show column dividers, which makes things really simple to separate steps as you go through. The other thing I really love about these new forms is the ability to really customize each individual column as if it's almost like it's its own tab with old forms, for those of you who are familiar to that. But now you can do it with colors and column header settings. So maybe this is just client personal info. And maybe I want that to have a background color of blue. And they give you the ability to add hex codes, so you could really make this custom to your business. Really great additions there. So those are a few of the things you can do when it comes to the navigation. Now, one of the things that I've always utilized in the past, and I'm sure a lot of you have, for those of you longtime customers, is making tabs to kind of separate different pages. Now, what Quickbase has done is they've actually added something called pages. So I can add a page, and this is really a replacement for tabs. And you can see that, we names our first one, and then we have untitled page. But if I scroll down, here's my untitled page. It almost looks like a section, but when I hit save on this and I'm now in more of a view mode, that's actually going to show these as two separate pages. So let's just edit this, and let's just call this untitled, 2.0, let's just say. And we'll check that checkbox. Now, of course, we have the form navigation settings here, which I really like. And now I can display this as tabs, or something that I've been seeing more and more for those of you who have gone to the new UI is doing it in steps. So for those who have all of these forms set up for your end users who are maybe doing data entry or are going through their day-to-day tasks, and Quickbase is a tool to help them kind of get more functionality and usability between their day-to-day tasks, as I just mentioned. This is a way to have it laid out where they're doing things in a same order every single time. And maybe I want the page one, since we have page one headings, maybe just fill in info. It can be that simple. If I want to move these around, again, just drag and drop them around. Really comes into play when you have multiple different steps. Obviously, we're just showing two here, or I could just change this back to tabs. So let's go ahead now and see. You may notice right at the top, we have this little blue dot. This shows us that changes have been made. Once you hit save, those will go into live production. You also have, as I mentioned in the old forms, really the powerful form rules. And again, not everyone utilizes these, but you can make the form rules just as you had in the past by hitting create form rules, and you get this easy widget on the right side where you can customize those form rules as needed. Now, again, I'm not going to go into how to make form rules right now. That's going to be a separate video, but I do believe that's a huge asset for all Quickbase users. And then, as I mentioned before, if you kind of remember in those old forms, we had those tabs at the top where we're going through. This is actually the properties, which was that middle tab. So you can customize the form name. You can display if you want to have fields that were added shown at the bottom or not shown at all. You can see that, make no changes to the form. And you could also show what save buttons are going to be available. Save and next, save and new. You can do that for your end users, especially if you're one of those admin who are building out these forms for those people in the trenches using this every day. So let's go ahead and just hit save, and let's take a look at how that form is going to look after making those quick changes. So you can see that we have our blue colorful client info, client personal info, as I named it over here. We have our report. And one thing I really want to show you guys from the report is kind of that new pop-up window. And I think it's really neat how they have this set up. So if you hit view here, it's actually going to come up in this whole separate pop-up screen. And I find this really, really powerful because instead of going to a whole new record, as you would have with report links on the old forms, now you can just view this in this nice little UI pop-up. And I find it really easy because now when you close this out, you're still in the same record and you're not doing as many back on your browser. Same thing with edit. If you hit edit here, now you can edit that same related job record right from this easy whiz pop-up screen. So it makes life really easy for your end users. and definitely shortens the time of data entry and manual work, and also kind of stops a lot of confusion because now you're not jumping around between different tables. And the last thing I just want to mention again is now that we have those tabs at the top, I can jump down to that untitled page. Now I didn't add any information there, but that would be that second page. You can notice if I scroll to the bottom, that's no longer shown. That's only there when in edit mode. But I believe that with new forms, you're going to find that you have those subtle differences, but increased UI changes. Where for people who are more, modern facing and have used other platforms before, they'll find this to be easier to follow along with and easier for beginners, as I like to believe. You'll have no issue making your own custom forms and getting really creative. I feel like you'll really enjoy that portion of it. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please shoot a like. If you're going to help us reach more Quickbase users like yourselves, that like's going to go a long way. And if you're interested in staying up to date with future Quickbase tips and tricks, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can get notified whenever we release a new video. We're excited to keep these going. And if you have any questions, please reach out to support@JuiceTech. Thanks so much, and talk to you soon.